is brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
Hey Hoopheads, wanted to take a minute to shout out our partners and friends at Dr. Dish Basketball. We've had their partnership manager and training specialist Jefferson Mason and marketing manager Nick Bartlett on the show in the past, and we couldn't be more excited about what they're doing for the game of basketball. Their Dr. Dish shooting machines are undoubtedly the most advanced and user-friendly machines on the market, and truly accelerate skill development faster than ever. Beyond efficient reps, Dr. Dish provides training expertise and versatility designed to develop complete players. The new Dr. Dish CT machine has further revolutionized basketball training with over 150 plus on-demand individual and team workouts from some of the best coaches and trainers in the game. These workouts include video instruction and combine game-like shooting drills with ball handling, conditioning, and agility drills. Along with workouts, the Dr. Dish training management system also provides stat tracking and analytics to track progress and ensure accountability. These are just a few reasons why top programs like Duke, North Carolina, Louisville, Florida, Baylor, and countless others are upgrading to Dr. Dish. Learn more at drdishbasketball.com. Follow their incredible content at Dr. Dish B-Ball on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And make sure you mention the Hoopheads podcast to get $300 off your next Dr. Dish purchase. That's a great deal, Hoopheads. Get out and get your Dr. Dish shooting machine today.
During the summer camps, not only was I networking, but I was learning a lot of drills that I could apply during my practices. And I remember that summer after I worked those 11 basketball camps is how it set me up for just like a nice game plan for my practice plan.
Tyler Whitcomb is currently the boys' head varsity basketball coach at West Michigan Aviation Academy. He started off his coaching career at the age of 19 as a student assistant basketball coach at Kalamazoo Valley Community College, which led to Tyler becoming an assistant coach on some very good college teams under a Hall of Fame coach. During that time, he helped with and ran basketball camps all over the nation. In one summer, Coach Whitcomb worked 12 different basketball camps, including 5-Star, Reebok's Bobby Hurley Camp, McCracken Camp, Bradley University, KVCC, shooting camps, Grand Valley State, Camp of Champions, and Calvin. Tyler continued to work camps and climbed the ladder to one day being a head varsity basketball coach. Whitcomb was a professional basketball owner of the Grand Rapids Flight and later the Holland Blast of the International Basketball League. In 2006, Tyler won the Executive of the Year when both teams made it to the IBL Final Four out of 29 teams. He also began his career as a scout with multiple pro leagues that same year. Whitcomb broke down film for Synergy Sports Technology, doing NBA, college, and international games while running pro exposure camps and youth camps in West Michigan. In 2012, Tyler was back in the high school ranks at Tri-Unity Christian as the Varsity Girls Basketball Coach, with a stint at Grandville before ending up at West Michigan Aviation Academy. Coach Whitcomb is the creator of the Elevation Offense and has an excellent menu of coaching videos that he has produced for CoachTube.com. Make sure you subscribe to the Hoopheads podcast on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, please leave us a 5-star rating and review. Your ratings help your friends and coaching colleagues find the show. If you really love what you're hearing, recommend the Hoopheads pod to someone and get them to join you as a part of Hoopheads Nation. Make sure you have your notebook handy so you can jot down some notes as you listen to this episode with Tyler Whitcomb from West Michigan Aviation Academy in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Hello and welcome to the Hoopheads podcast. It's Mike Klinzing here with my co-host Jason Sunkel. And tonight we are pleased to welcome from West Michigan Aviation Academy, Tyler Whitcomb. Tyler, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, we are excited to have you on tonight and get a chance to dive into your basketball journey. Want to get started by going back in time to when you were a kid and talk a little bit about what made you fall in love with the game of basketball.
Sounds good. So when I was a kid, my dad pushed me to play baseball, wrestle, and play football, and I just never got into basketball. And in 5th grade, some of my friends that I was playing sports with said, "You need to come play basketball with us. We need an extra guy to play on a local YMCA team." And then once I stepped out on the court, I just fell in love with the game. And the interesting thing is growing up, I was better at wrestling. So, and it was a sport that my family is really good at. I had a cousin that wrestled at Iowa, and I had another cousin that was a two-time state champ. So they really pushed wrestling on me. And I wrestled all through junior high and played basketball. And then when I had to choose in high school, either to wrestle or play basketball, it was, even though I was a lot better at wrestling, I chose to play basketball just because I loved the game. I just loved all the passing, the cutting, the angles, and it was just something that I fell in love with at a young age and continued to play. In high school, I went to Grand Rapids Union High School. It's a big Class A school in the City League at Grand Rapids, and it wasn't a easy journey for me. You get some real talented kids that were just, from the minute they walked in the gym, you knew that they were going to be a big-time player. Where my freshman year, I played on the freshman team. I was, right around the 7th or 8th man. I was only about 5'2". I was a small kid. And then my sophomore year, I grew about 10 inches, so I'm close to about 6 foot. So it's 5'2". Yeah, about 6 foot. And I went from my JV year being the first or second leading scorer every night, and I had a game where I had 20 points in a quarter. And
wow, nice.
Yeah. I mean, pumped myself up a little bit. That's probably my only good memory.
Yeah, that's all right, man. That's good. That's a good one to have. You were on an 80-point pace. You were going after Kobe.
I was. And the sad thing is I only ended up with 27 that night. I just it's kind of a poor team, and it got into where I didn't get many minutes.
You just got doubled. You got doubled the rest of the game. So you opened it up for other teammates. That's really what happened.
There you
right?
go. Yep, that's what it was.
It's called selective memories. How'd your family feel about you choosing basketball over wrestling?
My dad wasn't too happy, to be honest with you. He was, he pushed wrestling, and I did a lot of tournaments, and it was something that I was pretty good at. And basketball, he looked at me, at that time. I mean, I was 5'2" going into high school. He thought I was crazy, and the two sports I played were football and basketball, and I just think he thought that was funny. Like, you're 5'2", you need to choose other sports, and it ended up working out. And
so what's
and then. What's that? Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, what were you saying? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt.
What was your best memory other than your 20 points in a quarter? Do you have a memory from your high school career that sticks out to you?
Yeah, vaguely. The sad thing is my sophomore year I just had a good year because I went from not expecting too much to I worked a lot on my game, and I played travel ball. I played AAU for a local team, and next thing you know, things finally panned out for me where it was, I just loved the sport. And so I put everything into it, and it kind of worked out. I had that 20-point quarter, and then 2 games later I hit a game winner. And then that was always kind of my memory. It was in front of a big crowd in Allendale, and it was a game we should have easily won by quite a few points, and we struggled a little bit at the end. They came back. We went to overtime. Had the game won, they took it back from us, and we thought we lost, and I had a fadeaway falling out of bounds in the corner, and we won. That was a big memory for me. And then 2 games later, I got moved up to varsity, and in my first game ever on varsity, we played a team that wasn't, again, not that strong, but I came off the bench, and I had the most points I ever had in any game, which was 28 points. So, and that was, and I never scored that much as a junior or senior. So
that's funny.
The crazy thing was my junior year I really didn't play that much because we had a really outstanding freshman come in, and we had a couple sophomores that were really good. So it was kind of interesting. We were more fast-paced and up-tempo, and it didn't really fit my style. But then my senior year, I had an okay senior year. Nothing to really brag about. I wasn't a top recruit or anything like that.
Hey, not everybody gets a chance to make a game-winning shot in a high school JV game or any
game.
Game.
There you go.
So that's something that that memory I'm sure is priceless. That's one that you'll carry that one with you till you're 90 years old and be able to tell your great grandchildren about it.
Yes.
All right. So while you were playing, was there ever a thought in your mind at that time that you might want to get into coaching, or was coaching something that came to you after your playing career was done, or while you were playing, did you think, hey, I might someday want to be a coach? Obviously, your family had an athletic background. So was there a thought of coaching prior to you getting done playing? And then how did your first coaching job come about?
One of my best friends was 7 foot. He played at one of our rivals, Ottawa Hills, and they won a state title. And we played in a lot of Mackers, and I never really thought about what I wanted to go to school for. And we played in a 3-on-3 with a couple other guys, and we got people watching us, and he ran in a little bit of academic trouble. So the community college coach was there. His name was Dick Schultz. He's a Hall of Fame basketball coach in the state of Michigan. He was Western Michigan's old head coach. And then, this is way back when Magic Johnson played at Michigan State. So that's a long time ago. But he got let go, and then he took on the athletic director job and the head basketball coaching job at Kalamazoo Valley Community College. And he was recruiting Jeff a little bit, and he said, possibly could you walk on, or maybe I could give you even some partial scholarship money and come play there. And then when I got there, I wasn't good enough. There was better players. And when I talked to him, he asked me to be a student assistant. And I got coaching at the age of 19, to where, typical places where I see student managers or student assistants, it's kind of wipe up the sweat, grind it out, kind of be the gopher guy, which is great. You got to pay your dues. And with Coach Schultz, like at a young age, he was having me break down film, and he was showing me how to break down film, and he was having me going on recruiting trips, and he was letting me get out and network with coaches and work basketball camps. He's pumped my name out there so I could work camps all around the nation, and it just got me a good head start into the coaching aspect. And when I was 21, I was already a head coach at Hackett Catholic in Kalamazoo, where I was a girls freshman coach, and that's kind of where I got my start.
Well, that's good stuff that he took care of you that way, because we all know that doesn't necessarily always happen. And I'm sure that gave you a huge leg up, not only in him promoting you and giving you opportunities to, put your name in front of other people, but just all those experiences that you were able to get that I'm sure benefited you as you went on in your coaching career. So when you first transition and you start coaching there, what were some things that maybe surprised you a little bit about the coaching profession on the college level that you hadn't thought of as a player? Was there anything that was surprising to you, or anything that you were like, man, I didn't realize coaches did a whole bunch of this? What sticks out in your memory from that time?
The biggest thing was how much scouting you had to do. Not only are you recruiting players and you're on the road and you're watching tons of game film, but just how much game film you study on yourself and how much you break down, and how important the stats were. And then just what went into it, the game planning every day of putting a practice plan together and executing it, and running with a nice fast pace, just like a pace that just college players knew what to expect, and it was a professional looking product, and they were just going at it, and it was just fun to see the background of how it all came together. And it was just something that I never thought of, not as a coach, as a player growing up. I just didn't know what high school coaches put into it, let alone college coaches.
Yeah, I think that I think it's a hard thing to know as a player, because you're kind of caught up in your own world, and whether it's your own performance or the wins and losses of your team. And, you just kind of take for granted that coaches show up at the beginning of the practice and they go home at the end of practice just like you do. And, you don't necessarily think about what they're doing outside of that time. And I think when you first get into coaching, for a lot of players, unless you really have had coaching in your background or you've had it in your mind previously, I think it's a shock to a lot of people when they go and transition from being a player to being a coach, that the amount of time that coaches do spend and do put into what they do. I think it's surprising to players who haven't had that experience before or hadn't thought about coaching. So if you think back to that time, obviously as a young coach, you're 18, 19 years old at that time. Did you find it challenging to when you were out on the floor coaching, or did you do mostly behind the scenes stuff at that point? Because obviously you're very close in age, or the same age as the players that you were coaching as part of that staff?
I did a lot of behind the scenes, and Coach Schultz would even talk about it when he was recommending me to other college coaches, further on in my career when I was trying to get other college coaching jobs. He always said, he was a behind the scenes guy, and a lot of it was because of age. I hung around a lot of the players that were on the team. Like I said, one of the 7-foot kid, he was my best friend. So at the time, it was just kind of challenging to get up and instruct, kids that were my age, my peers. I remember the first time he was having back problems, and he had me and the head assistant run practice, and the head assistant gave me a bunch to do, and I still remember that day where I just felt just nervous and just wasn't very confident. I had to lead just a simple ball handling drill, and I remember how difficult it seemed to me. And you always criticize yourself. Then later on, I asked some of the players, how did I do? And it seemed normal. We kind of knew what to do anyway. So, but yeah, I mean, it was challenging at that age, and I think it was good to get out and be a freshman girls basketball coach. And the cool part about Kalamazoo Valley Community College is the girls coach was very involved. They would run their basketball camps, and they'd have, me and even the players work their camps, and we'd get out coaching, and they'd teach us. And the girls coach had a daughter that played at Hackett Catholic, and he was the one that got me involved. And he kind of looked over me too, and would give me insights, and he'd come to practice and give me, just, have you thought about trying this? Have you thought about trying that? So it was at a young age, I had very good basketball minds in my head and working with me. And I think the world of both of them for doing that. And that's what got me really hooked on the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Having great mentors in the game, I think is very, very important, especially as a young coach. If you can attach yourself or find somebody that is willing to go to bat for you and help you and just show you the ropes of what coaching is all about, I think that's invaluable as you move through your career. One of the things that you mentioned there when you talked about, leading that ball handling drill and it strikes me as something that I don't think a lot of coaches necessarily think about, but I think early in our coaching careers, I think that confidence in ourselves a lot of times is lacking in terms of our understanding of how we want things to go and what we want to do. And even if we, quote, know the game, we may not necessarily know how to coach. And I think sometimes that, we feel that lack of confidence, and slowly over time, we build that up. And I think that comes through increasing our own knowledge through whatever ways it is, whether that's attending clinics or reading books or going and watching practices, are all ways that A, you become a better coach, and then B, that builds your confidence so that when you do get in front of a group of players like you described, the next time you're more confident. You're like, all right, I've done this once, I can do it again. Or I've gone through one season as the girls freshman coach, now I'm ready to do it a second time. And each time you do it, each time you go through a practice, each time you go through a season, you become better, you become more confident. And as a result, you're able to have, I think, a greater impact on players. If you think back to your time there when you first got that girls freshman job, what do you remember about the very first time you stepped in front of those girls as the head coach, as the person who was in charge? Describe that moment for us if you can remember what that was like and kind of how that first season went, maybe what some things were that you weren't very good at as you look back retrospectively, and maybe even one or two things that you think, I wasn't all that bad at that during that time.
Well, I think the biggest challenge right away was just time management. It's the first time I ever had to do a practice plan, and you get in on the website and you're looking around, what does a perfect practice plan look like? And you're writing down all the things you want to do and all the things that you remember from, when you were being an assistant, and you put together a practice plan. I remember my first practice, I was pumped up. I get in there and said what I wanted to say. And, when you're younger and you're just starting off, you tend to over talk, and then some of the drills that you're doing, you cut short. And I just remember when I was done, I felt like the practices were too quick, and it took a good half a year to really reel in and have good time management and get the most out of my practices. And the other thing too is just in game management, making adjustments. It's one of those things where you learn the more experience you have. The one thing I think I was pretty good at was relating to players and pulling them aside, just because, again, I had good mentors, and they preached to me all the time about how good a communication you have to have in order to get your team's attention. And, as a young guy too, as you think only wins and losses, and, and I'm not saying all young coaches. I mean, a lot of young coaches are in their early 20s, but I mean, I think at the time 19. I think I just turned 20.
Right.
And it was, one of those things where, we were losing some games. They moved up a bunch of kids, and, your confidence, like, wow, maybe I'm not cut out for this. And that was back when the girls, see, in Michigan, it used to be the girls were in the fall and the boys were in the winter. And then, bottom line, you could coach year round, because you could coach the girls in the fall, boys in the winter, and then you could coach AAU. And that's how I was getting a lot of my reps, because I did coach AAU too. And that's how I kind of taught myself. But later that year, the head coach for Hackett that year was best friends with the Grand Rapids Catholic Central coach, TJ Carnegie, another big name in the Grand Rapids area, and he needed a freshman boys coach. And that's when I left Kalamazoo Valley, and I became a freshman boys coach at Grand Rapids Catholic Central, which is a powerhouse in the Grand Rapids area. In our first year there, we were 18-2, and then that's kind of when my confidence just kind of skyrocketed. And I was thinking, wow, I really got to learn this game. There's a lot of things I don't know, and that's when I kind of plugged into going to working a bunch of basketball camps, networking, going to coaching clinics, reading as much as I possibly could, and buying a bunch of videos, and that's when I knew I was all in.
All right, so you just mentioned two things about how you improved yourself as a coach. So if you think about, and it doesn't necessarily have to be from any particular point in your career, but just think about some of the clinics that you've gone to. Is there one particular speaker or nugget or something that you remember from a clinic specifically that you can pull out and share with us? So let's start with that, and then we'll come back to the second piece of it.
Sure. So I would go to the BCAM. It's a coaching clinic that's put on by the Basketball Coaches of Michigan every year, and it was in Lansing. They'd have big name speakers, and a lot of times you'd get your big John Beelines or Tom Izzles, and they would kind of play the name game, talk about some of their former players, and as a young coach, you'd think that's cool. And you'd also get the big time coaches that are running stuff that you could probably never run at the high school level. And I remember at a coaching clinic, I learned this T-zone offense, and against a 2-3 zone. I remember I went back, I studied it, and ran it with my team, thought I ran it to perfection. I remember we just couldn't utilize it. Then I went back and I was like, well, they also have 6'8", 6'10" players, and it was a lot easier for them.
Absolutely.
So I just learned from that point of view is, not everything can be run for your team, so you got to find what works for your team. And a lot of times now when I go to coaching clinics, you don't find that much, but you do find some stuff, and it's like I look for coaches that kind of run the same thing as we run, or like if I want to be more fast-paced, I look for the fast-paced coaches and see kind of what they do, and I try to steal some stuff that they have, and I utilize it for the team. But going back to probably the best clinic that I seen was a hockey coach was speaking at a clinic, and it was, it's different. You're not used to a hockey coach, but it was hockey. What was it? Teaching life skills to hockey players, and all it was. He won 4 state titles. He coached a couple guys that were in the NHL, and he talked about how none of it matters now that he's older. No one even knows who he is, and he said the number one thing that he could do is take 10 minutes out of every practice or before it, your pregame, and have a subject each week, whether it's perseverance or whatever the life skill that you want to teach that week is, and really pump it into your kids so they're getting something out of it. Because, you know the percentages of kids that are even playing college sports, after their high school career, or pro sports, or even, I think it's equivalent of winning the lottery or something. It's just maybe not that high, but it's it's just
low.
unlikely.
It's pretty low.
Yeah,
Let's put it that way. It's pretty low.
Pretty low. Yes. I mean, in my area, West Michigan, we've had some great players over the last 25 years, and I think we've had 3 NBA players, and only one of them has had a decent career. So I mean, that just goes to show you. I mean, the chances of playing at that level is extremely low, and that was his message is, let's start teaching these kids life skills, because a lot of times nowadays, I mean, we got 2 parents that are working to make ends meet. They're not around a lot, and unfortunately, it's put on teachers and coaches to teach kids life skills and how to be, off the court just as much as on the court. So it was very important. It was one of the best clinic speeches that I heard, and it really sunk into me.
All right, so let's jump ahead and take that particular topic and figure out, how did you go about then taking that to heart and incorporating that into what you do now on a daily basis? So it doesn't have to be how did you immediately implement it, but if you just think about how you go about trying to teach life lessons to your kids, your players, your teams over the years up to and including where you are now, just kind of give us an idea of how you go about incorporating that stuff into your coaching.
Sure. Well, when I got done with the clinic, I didn't do exactly what he said. I mean, his goal was to come up with 25 life lessons that you want to teach during the season, and divide it into your time, and then make sure you're hitting home and kids are bringing note cards in and they're writing down, and you're basically having a lesson, like a 5-minute lesson every other day on that lesson during the week. I didn't go that far with it, but it did hit home to where it sent the message to me that I need to start teaching life skills. So I just felt like it was better to communicate more one-on-one with my players, taking them aside, especially when I got on them really hard at a practice on their way out. You put your arm around them and tell them, it's I do this because I care about you. I want the best for you. But I mean, I think the biggest thing is whenever there's a life lesson that a team can learn, it's nice to address it, and it's nice to openly communicate with your players, about more than just basketball, addressing, life, things that happen in life. And I think that's important.
So do you think it's more, from your standpoint, sort of a teachable moment thing, where something comes up and you're like, okay, this is a great way for me to teach my kids about perseverance, or this is a great way for me to teach my kids about the importance of hard work, or this is a great way for me to teach my kids about honesty? Is that kind of the way you approach it, where you just look for those opportunities within your team setting or maybe within the school setting? Is that how you kind of approach it?
That's how I approach it. And I get the way he, this coach that was speaking, how he approached it. He wanted more lesson plans that, you were put into your practice plan each week. And it was just something that, I didn't go that far with it, even though it is very important. It's kind of, like you said, when teachable moments came up, we grabbed it and we used it and utilized the moment to each of our
Can you think of an example of something that you recall over the past few years of your coaching career where you had an opportunity where something came up and then you were able to use that to teach one of the life lessons that we're talking about here?
Yeah, I'd have to think about it. Off the top of my head, I would say the biggest thing, so last year we'd always talk about hard work. Hard work will pay off, because we had a young team. We lost a lot of talent from the year before. We were just saying, we got to outwork everybody. And we had a moment to where we had a cross-country kid that was outstanding. I mean, he was just an outstanding runner, and it wasn't like he was gifted with a lot of God-given talent, where it was, we're looking at him and he just worked harder than anybody. And we had him come in and talk to our players. We also went outside and we watched one of his workouts, and we were telling him, there's a reason he's going places, and the reason he's getting what he wants, and it's because he's such a hard worker, and his hard work's paying off. And I think that set our players really saw what he was doing, and I think it hit home with a lot of them.
Yeah, I think we can bring something from the abstract into the concrete, where they can actually see something taking place in front of them, whether it's that cross-country kids workout and seeing, man, there is a reason why this guy's winning a lot of races because he's working so hard. I think that when you can make something concrete for kids, that's really, really important in order to get it across. Because a lot of times, I know, you mentioned it earlier, as young coaches have a tendency to talk a lot. And I think sometimes when we talk, we think that our message is getting across, and that's not always the case. And I think if you can bring something concrete, something that the kids can see or observe or relate to, I think you're much more likely to get your life lesson across to them and help them to understand how important that's going to be, not only to their basketball career, but also to their life in general. And I think that's something that's very important for coaches out there to remember, is when we teach life lessons, it's important that those lessons relate to right where those kids are in the moment. And yeah, we wanted them to think about how it's going to apply to their future, but a lot of times we know kids are focused very much on the here and now. And so I think if you can bring that in like you did there, I think that's something that really will work well. As you've listened to the Hoopheads podcast, one common topic that continually comes up in our conversations is character. I'm fortunate to be associated with the Positive Coaching Alliance, a national nonprofit movement that provides valuable tools, training, and resources for coaches, athletes, parents, and administrators that is centered around sports and educational psychology and organizational behavior research. PCA combines this research with practical advice from a national advisory board of top pro and college athletes and coaches who utilize PCA principles at the highest levels of competition. Through a partnership with our local Cleveland chapter of the PCA, we are pleased to offer a discount code to allow you, our listeners, to take a PCA online course for just $20. To take advantage of this offer, visit the store on positivecoach.org and enter the discount code HoopHeads20. That's HoopHeads20 with 2 capital H's. Coaches, I hope you'll take advantage of this great offer from the Positive Coaching Alliance and help us continue to grow the game. I want to circle back to what we talked about here before we got off on talking about the clinic. You also mentioned that another way that you tried to grow and improve as a coach was going and attending camps. So I'm going to kind of ask you the same question that I did in regards to the clinics, and that is, what were 1 or 2 either camps or moments from camp that you remember when you would attend, and then you would take some of those things back with you from the camp? So can you remember any of the things from coaching at some of the summer camps that really helped you to develop and improve as a coach over the course of your career? Sure.
So like I said at first, Coach Schultz thought it was important, get yourself out there. You want to network, especially if you, when I was young, my goal was to keep moving up in the college ranks, and he said you got to get out there and network. But I remember the one summer I worked 11 basketball camps in the summer, and I was going all over the nation. I worked Bobby Hurley's Reebok All-Star Basketball Camp in New York. I worked McCracken's camp in Indiana. Worked all over Kalamazoo Valley, then like local colleges, Grand Valley's camp. I went to Bradley University's camp in Peoria, Illinois, because that's where my 7-foot friend ended up playing, was Bradley. And I just remember during that time, I studied a lot of X's and O's, and again, I was a behind-the-scenes guy. But did I have a lot of drills? I mean, I just had, the only drills I used were the ones that I saw at Kalamazoo Valley and a couple that I remembered from high school. So during the summer camps, not only was I networking, but I was learning a lot of drills that I could apply during my practices. And I remember that summer after I worked those 11 basketball camps is how it set me up for just like a nice game plan for my practice plan. So that year when I went to Catholic Central, the thing that was unique, not only was I a young coach and everyone looked at your record as 18-2, this guy's a stud coach, but the thing was I was just starting off and I just had a lot of talent, if I'm being honest with you.
Stud players,
right.
Not necessarily stud coach
stud
at that
player,
point.
for sure. Yeah, but during that time it was kind of unique because I had a lot of different drills that I was stealing from quality coaches that I met during the summer camps. And you build those relationships. And I remember a few years later, you'd run into coaches through Facebook, and yeah, remember me from this camp, and it's just good networking and just keeping that relationship going. And through the years, I worked other camps at colleges in our area. Now that I have a family, I don't get to travel as much working the camps. But this last summer, I worked a couple of the elite guard camps that Hoop Smart puts on in our area by Ken George, and it's good. It reminded me of back when I was first starting off coaching and getting to those summer camps, how important they are, and just how much fun you have, working with kids, and you can have a little bit of one-on-one at the summer camps, and take a kid to the side and show him some skills, and show him some things that he can do to improve his game.
Yeah, I think the camp scene, it's certainly different than it was 25 or 30 years ago, where there was a lot more, not only on college campuses, but just all over. There were more fundamental camps, and the AAU circuit wasn't quite as developed as it is now. And I think that a lot of times, you hear stories of coaches who, are coaching in college or coaching the NBA, and to a man, almost all of them credit the fact that they did what you did, which is they went out and they traveled across the country and they worked this camp, and then they were there, and they were down in Florida, and then next thing you know, they were up in Massachusetts, and then they're in California, and they just, these are basketball junkies who are traveling all over the country to be able to work camps. And there's still obviously a lot of camps that are out there that people are doing a great job with. We've had the good fortune of being able to work with Jay Billis at his camp down in North Carolina, and also at Snow Valley out in Iowa. And those are two just tremendous teaching camps that we've been fortunate enough to be able to be a part of. But it's certainly not as prevalent as it used to be. And I think that's something that if you're a young coach out there and you get an opportunity to work at one of the great teaching camps, whether one of the ones we just mentioned, or you work at one of the local universities or colleges that puts on a fundamental camp, I think you said it best, that you get great networking when you go. B, you have an opportunity to be around really good coaches and steal, borrow, however you want to phrase it, from those great coaches. And then third, I think it's just fun to be a part of that summer camp circuit. And I don't know that there's as many coaches today that are out on that summer camp circuit as there used to be, simply because of, I think, multiple reasons. One, we're all coaches are really busy with their own teams and don't necessarily feel like they have time to take off from that. And then a lot of coaches who are coaching at a lower level, if you're coaching a freshman team or an 8th grade team, you're probably, just like you were doing, they're probably coaching some AAU basketball in the spring. So I think the camp scene is something that, I can hear you when you're saying it, how valuable it was for you. And I think it's also valuable for young coaches as well.
Oh, I agree. I think if it's something that you can put into your schedule in the summer, I recommend it for any coach. I just think there's so much you can gain from it. And it's something that I wish I had more time to do in the summer, because I would work a lot more camps. This spring I was coaching AAU, and I remember Marquette was looking for some summer basketball coaches, and it's something that I wanted to do. I thought it would be, so much fun to work in front of Wojciechowski, and but I couldn't make it work, and so unfortunately I wasn't able to work the camp. Tell me a little bit about the Jay Billis camp. I love his basketball book, Toughness. How was his camp?
So the camp was great. So just the backstory, we got connected to John Searby, who is the director of the camp for Jay, and we got connected to John Searby through a relationship with Alan Stein. And Alan was nice enough to connect us to John, and then we had John on the podcast, so he invited us to come down and be a part of it. And I was struck by, so I went basically as sort of an observer, because what we were going to start it last year, was to have an affiliate camp for middle school kids, that an affiliate of the Jay Billis Skills Camp, which is for high school kids. And we were going to run one here in Cleveland. And last year we thought we were going to have it set up, and it just ended up that the timing wasn't right. And so we're planning to have it this year. We should be announcing the dates relatively soon. But at any rate, so I went down there just to kind of check things out, how they ran their camp down there, to get an idea that if we were going to run one here in Cleveland, what that would look like. And so the most amazing part of it is that there's 100 kids and there's 50 coaches. So I have never ever been to a camp where the player-coach ratio is 2-1. It was just incredible. And what they do that's super unique is, so they bring in 10 Division III head coaches, and those 10 Division III head coaches each have a team during the 2.5 days or whatever it is that the camp is running. And then they have also what they call their coaches development program, which is, again, something that I had never seen before. So at a typical camp, if you think about it, kids go to lunch and the staff goes to lunch and goes to the cafeteria and everybody kind of eats together, and then the coaching staff, wanders their way back to the gym after lunch is over, just like the players do. Well, at the Billis camp, they have a coaches development program. So when the kids go to lunch, the coaches go to a meeting room and they get lunch brought in, and then there's speakers or there's a program that is designed for coach education. So like while I was there, they brought in a number of Division I coaches. Wes Miller from UNC Greensboro came in and talked. Lenny Acuff came in and talked. And there was just again, great people came in. Mike Dunlap from Loyola Marymount came in and spoke. So we had some great people that came in and talked. We also had some people on the staff that gave some presentations, and it was just incredible. So those coaches who are part of the coaches development program then are the assistant coaches for those teams who are run by the Division III head coaches. And you have,
I love that setup.
Yeah, it's great. And so you have, then you have the teaching part of the camp where they're going through and, the teams are rotating amongst those different coaches. And then when you go and you have your games, they had some 5-on-5. They did some special situation games where it was like, you'd play for like 3 minutes, and, they called it an overtime tournament. And so there was just all different kinds of things that they did to, again, kind of like an old-fashioned fundamental teaching camp. And it kind of came about because Jay and John Searby, who I mentioned earlier, got introduced to one another, and Jay was looking for somebody to help coach his son's AAU team back 7 or 8 years ago. And John had previously been an assistant coach to Jeff Lebo down at Auburn. And so Jay and John went to the first tournament, and Jay typically obviously is dealing with AAU tournaments where he's watching the top 50 or top 100 players in the country, and they're in great gyms, and the tournaments are organized. And so his son was not a top 100 player, so they went to the first tournament, and the two of them were sitting on the bench, and Jay turned to John and said, "Oh my gosh, are they all like this?" He just looked at the chaos that you think of a typical AAU tournament, and John's like, "Yeah, pretty much." And Jay's like, "Well, we got to do something about this." And so they kind of came to the realization that they probably couldn't change the entire system, but they wanted to grab a hold of something where they felt they could make a positive impact on basketball. And it was just, again, like I said, the 2-1, 100 players, 50 coaches just meant that there was so much coaching going on. And so from the perspective of a player, it was tremendous. Like if you're a player and you want to get better, great place to go to a basketball camp. And then conversely, if you're a coach, tremendous place to go and get better. So when I was there, there was a lot of high school coaches, a lot of graduate assistant, video coordinator type guys who were there at that coaching development program, just for the reasons you talked about. One, to learn and get better, and then two, to be able to network with each other and with some of the other bigger name college coaches who were maybe at that next step up where they were trying to get to. So it was a great experience. We're hoping we're going to be able to duplicate that on the middle school level for kids this summer in Cleveland. Like I said, we're in the process of hammering out a date that will work for everybody involved, but that should be coming up this summer. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah, I would be too. I love that idea. I love I love how they're teaching coaches and they're getting the most out of their players. That's just a great concept to
I had never
to
seen
a basketball camp.
Yeah, I had never seen anything as far as that coaches development program. I thought it was a very, very unique way of approaching how to staff your camp, because you're attracting really good people who want to get better and grow and learn. And so typically, as we all know, people who want to grow and learn are, they don't think they know it all, and yet they know a lot. And so the level of enthusiasm and the quality of the coaching there was second to none. It was very, very good. And Jay was there every single day, hands-on, involved with the kids, involved with the coaching development, talked to all those coaches, took the time to have conversations with people. He was tremendous. And I just think that what they have going down there is really, really great. And we're hoping, like I said, we can duplicate that this summer here in Cleveland. So thanks for asking.
Yeah. No, it's got my attention. I'm very interested to hear more about it. You have to keep me informed.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep you
informed.
I know they're going to announce, I think, the dates. Usually they put out the dates for Jay's main camp in November, and then they open up the registration for that coaching development program. If you have an opportunity to be a part of that, I think it'd be well worth your time. And for any coach out there who's listening who might want to get involved in that, I think they're going to release the dates sometime in November, and then open up the registration for the coaches development program. I'd highly recommend getting involved in that if that's something that you'd be interested in hearing what Tyler and I are talking about. Just in terms of your growth as a coach, I think it's a great way to be able to grow, both from just a basketball standpoint, but also from a networking standpoint. It was just great people there, great people. We had the opportunity to go there and also to Snow Valley out in Iowa this summer. And again, another great staff, another great camp that was well organized. And we feel fortunate to have been, a small part in getting a chance to get involved with both of those camps for sure. So, all right, let's jump back to you. And let's go from your freshman job. When do you get an opportunity to take over your own program at the high school level?
Not for a long time. So after the freshman job, I took the Catholic Central job as a freshman boys coach, and that was the job I told you I was 18-2. That spring, I coached some AAU again. The following year, I went back to my alma mater, Union High School, and I was the JV boys basketball coach. After that year, that was a year when I was finishing up school. I just got married. I had a kid, and I was actually just walking away from basketball, and I was only going to coach AAU, and that's when the pro basketball came my way. So,
all right, so tell us about that. When you say it came your way, this is something that a first on the podcast, to have a professional sports owner as a part of the podcast. So talk about how you got this opportunity to own an IBL franchise.
All right, so Michael Dulio, he was the IBL commissioner and the owner of the IBL, was looking for franchise owners all over the United States to have a semi-pro basketball team. And they visited Grand Rapids, and again, I'm throwing my 7-foot friend in the story, but he, at this time in our life, I mean, this is after I've coached for a few years, and I coached at Hackett for a couple years, and then coached at Catholic for a couple. Then I was at Union, and then eventually he graduated from Bradley, and he was playing for the Grand Rapids Hoops CBA team, and the hoops just didn't last. It was one of those things where it was just tough to sell sponsorships, get your ticket sales in, and a lot of times you're doing so much traveling, just the cost just wore on a professional team. That's when the CBA went under, and the IBL is trying to have a different brand of basketball to where there's a 22-second shot clock. When the ball went out of bounds, you could just go grab it and you could immediately play. They kept the three-point lines the same as high school, so you're getting these top-notch college players that can just fire it up and drain threes. And the league was kind of intriguing because they had a travel cluster. So you only had one long road trip, to where, like, if you were traveling from Michigan to California, you'd travel one time and you'd play 4 games in 6 nights and then come back. Then most of your games were either in your area or remotely close. And so it got my attention, and I was like, that'd be great if someone could get a team here. And I was only 26 at that time, or actually not even 26. I was 25, and I didn't even think that there's any way I could own a professional team. So I emailed Michael Dulio and I just asked if there's any way I could get involved in one of the teams. And I was just finishing school. I was looking to do this. And he just said, well, is there any way you could come up with money or get a loan? And we started going through some ideas and how much money it would take to finance a team. And eventually I was helping him look. And then months down the road, he'd always give me like these hard tasks and didn't think I could get them done. You know, a lot of it was just selling sponsorships and finding a gym and finding a court, and somehow I just kept getting it done. And then I had a in-law that had a little bit of money, and he said, I'll give you some money to start it up. And so I just got the initial startup and got it running, and there's a little publicity because, you know, I was the youngest professional sports owner in the United States at that time. And right away I got some good businessmen to jump on board, and we formed a LLC called Fast Forward Sports. And after the first year, we were the highest scoring team in sports. We were scoring 146 points a game. We had a game where we had 99 points and a half, and our whole thing was just fast. Just we were the Grand Rapids Flight. We had orange jerseys. We were up and down, and we had exciting players. We had a couple former NBA players on our team. I mean, not big names, but Charles Thomas, that played in the CBA most of his career, but he played a little bit. He had a couple 10-day contracts.
I played against Charles. I played against Charles in college.
Okay, how tough was he?
He was good. He was very good. So him and his brother, him and his twin brother Carl, were both at Eastern, and they were very tough. I actually just saw Charles. Well, now it was last fall, right about this time. I saw him in a gym here at local high school, St. Edward's. He's now an assistant at Duquesne with Keith Dambrot, and he was in recruiting one of the players at St. Ed's. And so I hadn't seen Charles probably since college. I had seen Carl because Carl played, got a couple minutes with the Cavs, and so I had run into him a couple times, but I hadn't seen Charles since college. So, but yeah, very, very good players, both of them. Very good. Played against them. They were a year ahead of me. So certainly when I was a sophomore and a junior, had some very good games with them and matching up with both of them in the backcourt. So.
Oh yeah, and I've heard good things. You know, it's just when I got Charles, it was after his overseas career, and he was kind of on his way down. But it was still nice to have him, and he was such a good leader. And I mean, he still started. He ended up taking the starting point guard job, and he's just such a good leader. We had a really exciting young point guard that was under him, and he just learned a lot from him. So I mean, Charles was a great addition. And then we had another guy that had a 10-day stint too. So I mean, but we had the right guys. Other teams in our league were going after these former, big time D1 talent, and we were getting young kids that were hungry, that were coming off like. Our area in West Michigan has just great NAIA and Division III programs that, we have Hope, Calvin, and Cornerstone, all these teams that are winning national titles, and D2 powerhouse like Grand Valley and Ferris State, and we just started grabbing all these young, like all GLIAC kids and kids that were just hungry, and we were able to compete right away. And the first year we were one game away from going to the championship, and then the second year, we started a second franchise, the Holland Blast. So we had 2 teams out of the 29 teams in the IBL, and both of them made it to the Final Four. And it was just building our talent around hungry kids that just graduated college with not that much pro experience, but guys that wanted to build their resumes up. And we just kind of fed into it, and we were able to make that thing grow for a few years.
All right, so tell me, how do you go from nothing to something, for lack of a better way of saying it? So just give me maybe the general outline, a couple steps that you have to take to go from, okay, I'm going to start this franchise, I'm going to own this franchise. How do you get that going to the point where you can put an actual product out on the court? What are the steps, or what were some things that were interesting about that process?
What was really interesting at first is all I kept hearing is, whenever we take sales meetings and learn how to really sell. I mean, to make a semi-pro or any pro basketball team go, that's not the NBA, is you got to be able to sell sponsorships. And our whole goal was to sell enough sponsorships to cover all of our expenses, and then all the ticket sales are just extra. And I mean, I failed miserably to do that, but that was our goal. And I remember the first year, I mean, even towards the end of the year, it was just nail biting. You know, are we going to be able to, you know, afford to even finish the year? And fortunately, again, I had some good business owners that were very lucky in their life and had some little bit of money, so we were able to make it go. But I mean, from the initial get-go, it was one of those things where I was just young and naive, and I got into it just kind of hoping and thinking, you know, I'm just going to start this pro team, there's going to be people in the crowd, I only need 150 people to break even, and I was like, oh, that's easy, that's a no-brainer. And then as you know, as the season approaches, you know, you're just getting nervous, and your players are coming along. And I remember just networking with college coaches, just sending out emails, just saying, look, we're having a tryout. It's this date. If you have any good college seniors, I'll waive their tryout camp. And we ended up with 140 kids trying out for 12 spots. And right away, we had a lot of talent, and we had a good coaching staff. We had Steve Headinga that's at Lake Superior State now. He is our head coach, and he did a good job of taking what we wanted in our product and really putting a good product out on the court. And our first game was packed, and it was just kind of like a dream come true. You know, I just didn't know if it would happen. And it was just a packed crowd, and we won big. We were playing a team that was supposed to be kind of the headliner of the league, some team from Tacoma, Washington.
Okay.
And he is hyping up some of the guy. It's been so long ago now. But a couple D1 guys that averaged 20 points a game, and it was supposed to be a big deal, and we just smashed them. I mean, we were up 99 to 44 at halftime. We ended up scoring 146 that game. But it was just a good experience. I mean, the IBL, it was at first, you know, it's just kind of that honeymoon experience. Anytime you start a semi-pro team, you get first couple years, you have a pretty good following. And I think people just kind of get bored of semi-pro basketball a little bit, and you always had to do something. You always had to be creative. There was a team in our league it was an agent that was, he'd always get like former players. He had Tim Hardaway play in our league, Dennis Rodman. He'd sign him. It was weird too, because wasn't like he'd sign him for the whole year. He'd sign him for like one game and just give him the ball every play. And the reason I got out of debt, I mean, you know, again, because the honeymoon, you start building up, then you get used to the expenses, and you start spending, you know, trying to build your program and grow it. And I remember just sitting back going, I got to get out of this. And we had a guy that was 7'9". His name's Sun Ming Ming, and we brought him in, and a guy wanted to buy the team, and basically it waived all my debt. And then we just went to the Holland Blast, and we had a little bit of success for a little while, and then that honeymoon time ran out, and it just kind of led me into a different direction where I took a sports management worldwide course, the digital video editing, and then it got me into a little bit of the scouting. I was the IBL's college scout, and then I worked for Synergy Sports Technology, breaking down film, doing a little bit of NBA games, but mostly college and international. And then that was the new direction I was going. I went from a AAU and high school basketball coach that was aspiring to be a college coach to a basketball sports owner to a wannabe basketball scout, and I went all through that realm. And then finally one day I started realizing it's just a lot of times scouts at that level are hiring their ex-friend. Not saying that if you don't work hard and you push through it, I mean, you might be able to find your way in, but a lot of times it's ex-players, and with today's technology, it's just hard to get a scouting job with, you know, without having a big-time background. So I just, not that I gave up on it, but it was, I had a little semi-project going where I had an NBA draft magazine called NBA Draft Scouts, and believe it or not, that was taken off. One of the funny stories is we sold a subscription to someone in prison, so we always thought that was kind of funny. And
that is funny.
Yeah, and it was, you know, it was one of those things where it was, you know, I really dove hard into the NBA draft, and, you know, and it wasn't going anywhere. And the guy that I was doing all my digital work and creating the magazine was very talented, and he got a bunch of jobs to where he just couldn't do it. And So I gave that dream up, and that's when I went back into high school coaching. And the funny thing is one of the basketball coaches, my best friends, his name's Mike Aarons. It was a guy, again, we talk about building relationships, but he was my fourth choice for the Holland franchise. I was trying to get some big names, and finally I was just like, well, he's the assistant at Grand Rapids. He's a great guy. He's very professional. I'll hire him. And he ended up being my favorite coach and a longtime friend now. And he's telling me that he's writing a book on his time as a semi-pro basketball coach, just because of some of the funny stories. You know, when you watch that movie Semi-Pro with Will Ferrell.
Right. Yep.
And I remember him watching it, and he got back, and I said, what did you think about it? And he goes, I lived it. And he just started laughing, because there's so much like gimmicks that go with it, and like from game to game, you don't know what's going on. And we always tell one of the funniest stories is he said, I've never had a player in my whole life call me and tell me he can't make it to practice because his girlfriend maced him and slashed his tires. So we always think that's funny. I'm like, no one can top that.
No,
and
that's it.
Yeah. And he just went along with it. Yeah. He just, all right, well, great. You know, I wouldn't be at practice either. Have a good one.
We'll see you tomorrow. The Head Start Basketball Holiday Camp for boys and girls in grades 1 through 6 will be held on December 26th and 27th. Join us for 2 fun days of basketball fundamentals, contests, and small-sided games. You can find more information or get registered at headstartbasketball.com. I'm curious about what you did for Synergy, and I think, you know, people out there who maybe don't know or understand exactly what Synergy is. Talk a little bit about what you did for them and how you went about doing it.
Sure. So I was fortunate as one of the guys that was teaching the class for Sports Management Worldwide had an in at Synergy Sports Technology, and I just asked, you know, are you guys hiring? And they said, we're not hiring a Phase 2 logger, but we're hiring a Phase 1 logger. You don't get paid as much, but basically all you are is a startup, and you clip in and clip out the video, and you log the free throws, and you're just killing the dead time. Then the Phase 2 loggers gets it, and then they're breaking it down into, every stat you can think of. They're clipping in and out, and it takes it's a lot of hard work, and then therefore, you know, if you have the subscription, you're an NBA team, as you can supposedly get it that night. You can click on. I remember the one guy was telling me, you know, I just use this as a sample, but he's like, we're scouting the Pistons, and that was back when the Pistons were good, and he's like, I wanted to see all Tayshaun Prince's shots from the left wing coming off of they'd run him once in a while. They'd run him in a horns twist action, and they wanted to see his percentage and what type of players were guarding him and how they can stop it. And so they could watch it. They could just clip in and just watch it within seconds. So Synergy is just, it's an outstanding software program that I think every NBA team has it now. And I don't know what colleges, what they get. I don't think they quite get what all the NBA teams get, but I know that they get a lot of breakdowns and just stats that you would never think of, and analytical advice and, you know, whatnot. But back then when I worked for Synergy, I was just a Phase 1 logger. Once in a while I did some Phase 2 stuff, but it's not for everyone. You have to put a lot of time in and be able to just stay engaged, I guess, into the game, where, you know, I'm more of a basketball fan to where I'm watching the game. I remember breaking down game of Liberty, and it was Steph's brother, what's his name? Plays for Dallas or did.
Oh, Seth.
Seth, yeah, and I'm sitting there doing a Seth Curry Liberty game before he transferred to Duke, and it's once in a while you do an international game and you can't even listen, you can't even understand what the announcers are saying, but you'd recognize some guy you remembered from like Michigan State, and you're like, oh man, Anagani, I haven't seen him in years. This is where he's at. And so there were some cool experiences with it, and it was it's a career that people can really get into, and you're seeing it at all college and NBA levels of having a nice video coordinator is everything. That's how a lot of guys get their start into coaching as well.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, you see that, you know, a lot with guys becomes that entry-level position, and then you get in with a staff and you do a good job there, and then you can move up the ladder without a doubt. How much do you use analytics in your coaching right now? Like what are some things from an analytics standpoint that you like to look at that you think help your team, or that you think help you as a coach to help your team be more successful?
So we're big into the analytics just because I was one of those guys that dove right into it. I was reading the Dean Oliver basketball on paper right away as 4 factors, and we were big into the crossover. I know they got bought out by Huddle, and we even used Huddle, and I've always kind of explored the whole analytics end of basketball. And my goal was to be one of the most analytical high school teams, and we tracked everything. I mean, we'll track, because we want to play unselfish, so we'll track screens, assists, to where it's something unique, to where every time someone sets a screen and you get a basket out of it, we give them a screen assist to give them some credit. And we even got to the point to where we were tracking different types of screens, whether it's a pin down or a flare, and just kind of, and then giving credit to people, you're our best flare screener, and then they'll buy into it. And then also another one was a hockey assist. We wanted guys to push the ball up, and not, a lot of times they weren't getting the assist or any credit for it, but it's like, is if you have that point guard just gets rid of it and gets the ball up the court, I mean, that's just as valuable as a guy that's dribbling, kicking out, and getting an assist. So our goal is to have hockey assists. Right now, our big thing is 6-0 runs, because everyone talks about, how many, if you have more 6-0 runs, if you should be able to win a game. So we're really tracking it. I think the NBA calls it score, stop, score, or something like that, and they track it. And we broke it down one time to where we found out we were winning 96% of the games, and we had 4 6-0 runs, and we were keeping the other team to 1 or less. And I mean, it makes sense, but so now our goal is, one of our assistant coaches sits on the bench, and he is yelling when we're on a 4-0 run, this is an important stop, this is an important stop. And then we come down, we score 6-0 run, 6-0 run, and so it's kind of something that we're known for. And then vice versa, if the other team's got 4 in a row, this is a huge stop, they get a 6-0 run, we're in trouble. So it's, that's analytically, we do that. We're talking something unique last year that we brought on, because I work with the Dallas Mavericks assistant basketball analytics guy's named Samario Clancy. He started a company called E3 Hoops Analytics, and I mean, he'd do our games. I'd send him footage, and he'd break it down. It'd be 12 pages, and it'd be from everything from each play. I mean, I gave him my playbook, and he'd break it down points per possession on each play, what's working, why it's working. I mean, we knew all that. But last year, my thing to him was, help me come up with a stat, because I feel like it's so necessary to track the guy that's 2 passes away, and if he's engaged enough to sprint and to get in position to where the guy won't even drive the ball or penetrate because he sees the help. I said that's such a huge step that no one tracks, so he helped me track that. And this year we're working on a new stat that we want to be. So we want to be, a pressure man-to-man team. And I've always been a pack line guy in the past, and we really want to be taking away, your play or your offense. So we want to track how many times a team can't get into their initial offense just by denying that first pass and really being putting a lot of pressure on the ball. So I think analytics are huge. I mean, some of it's unnecessary, but if it's for your team and you can find ways to make it work. Back when I was a pack line guy and I was a slow it down and executing in the quarter court type guy, I mean, my biggest thing was transition defense, how many points we're giving up. And then, obviously the points per possession, but offensive rebounds are huge, just kind of like the slower pace style, just some stats that can help us win games. And then what I would always try to do is find like a formula, and I stole it from Grinnell's old formula, even though I've never, to me it's a little bit gimmicky. It's worked for them great, but I liked how they had a formula for success, and they put a bunch of stats together, and they said if we do these 3 things or 4 things, we'll win the game. And so we were able to do that with when I was a slow it down team. When I coached the girls team at Tri-Unity Christian, we were creating 2 turnovers a game, and we had 3 games where we were creating over 40 turnovers a game. And during that time, my thing was, we were horrible basketball players. Like, I got girls that never even played basketball, but I had good athletes. So my whole goal was, I mean, we'd practice half the time just on pressing. And our whole goal was, when we got the ball, just jack it up, get an offensive rebound, try to put it in. I mean, it sounds goofy, but it was the only way we could compete. And we had 3 games where we created over 40 turnovers, and we even had a couple games where we held teams scoreless. And it wasn't bad teams, too. It was pretty good teams. So it was one of those teams that was just tenacious. And once we got something going, we could do it. But anyways, I tracked offensive rebounds and turnovers. And we found out, like, if we were a +8 in the offensive rebounds and a -8 in the turnovers, we were winning like 92% of the games. So that was our whole goal, is to create turnovers, not turn the ball over. And a lot of it was we played fast, but also we got rid of the ball so we didn't turn it over. And basically it came out to where we were getting 15, 16 extra shots a game than our opponent. You should be able to win, even if you're not very good basketball players.
Yeah, for sure. That always helps.
Yes.
That always helps. So 2 questions to go along with that. One is,
Sure.
what I hear you saying is that what you try to do is, obviously you have access to lots and lots and lots and lots of numbers. But what I hear you saying is that you try to pick out 3, 4, 5 that maybe apply most directly to your particular team in that particular year.
Yep.
And then 2, the second part of that is, how much do you then share those numbers or that data with the players, or are they just getting impacted by the types of drills and the types of things that you're talking about? So how much are you sharing those, quote, analytics with them, versus how much is it just steering the way you plan your practices or the things that you emphasize as you're preparing your team for a game?
See, and that's a good question. Is, for example, last year what we did is, like I said, we were getting 12 pages of stats. And I mean, a lot of it was for coaches to look at, and I was circling, highlighting, what's important, what can we do better. And sometimes, we would adjust our practice plan to either improve or take something that we're doing really good and really emphasize that. Like if we have a set play that's just killing it, I mean, we're going to eliminate maybe some other set plays and really work on that and even create more options out of it. And be able to utilize that. But with the players, that what we'd share is basically like our goals. So last year, to be honest, the only goal I shared was just the 6-0 runs, and we just wanted that to be the main emphasis. And the year prior to that, it was like we wanted to play unselfish, so it was the hockey assists and the screen assists, and it was other things that went along with it. And then when I was at Tri-Unity and we had that big run where we were getting a lot of turnovers, it was all about the offensive rebounds and turnovers. So it was, even though I was looking at a lot of stats and like different analytics, it was usually with the players I only shared a few things because I wanted that to really sink in. I wanted them to buy into that and see the results of it.
So to go along with that, how much video do you share with your players? So I assume you're watching some video and you're using that to prepare for your games, and you're checking out, watching your team's performance and scouting the teams that you have coming up. But how much time do you spend actually showing that video clips to your kids?
So what we do is, last year we had crossover and huddles, the same thing. We have huddle this year. I mean, honestly, it's a better product now since they bought them and they used everything that they had that they didn't, and it's it's very good with it. Their product's very good, and I'm able to use that with the E3 Hoops Analytics with Samario and send them stuff. But bottom line is, sorry, I'm losing track. What was the question again?
So how much video do you share with your kids?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah. So basically what we do then with that is we do a lot of clips. So if I'm looking to really show a kid his screening angles and that he's not, I'll clip it in and I'll send him a bunch of clips that night. So I'll watch video that night and I'll send him clips of what he's doing right and wrong, and and then our players usually watch like the game plan of our opponent the day before the game or even 2 days prior to the game, and we give him a scouting report. And I have a really good assistant coach. He's a young kid that's just, I mean, he's a smart kid, and he's very good at breaking down the game and doing a good scouting report. He presents it, and we kind of sit back and watch him, make sure he's doing a good job. So we do a lot of preparing for our opponent, and I'm starting to read more as you got to scout your team before your opponent more, and it's something I've never done that good of a job at doing. But today I was at Davenport University's women's practice watching, and I was looking at the guys' team, and they were watching their practice from the day before, going over their video of their practice, and it's, maybe it's something that I need to do is start videotaping practices more, and being able to bring players in and show them the night before his practice, or even now that with the technologies, I can even send them clips from the practice through the huddle account and be able to address some things that they're either doing right or doing wrong.
Yeah, I think tape and practice, we've heard more coaches say that than maybe I would have expected, that are taking video of practice and then sharing that with their players, especially in the preseason before you start playing games. Coaches, I think, are finding that to be a valuable tool. And then I think it's always good for kids to be able to see what they're doing. And you made a good point of saying that you're showing them not only what they're doing wrong, but also what they're doing right. And I think that's a huge piece of being able to develop your players, is you want to point out the positives that they're doing, and then you also want to point out areas where they can continue to grow. And so video is a great tool for that. The old saying goes, the video doesn't lie. So you can show them,
Yep.
You want to get some point across to them, and video is a great way to do it, as opposed to just saying, hey, we need you to run harder, on the break. Okay, well, sure, but I already think I do run hard. And then, I can show you on the video how your defender is outrunning you every single time down the floor, and it becomes a lot more clear for kids. And so I think there's tremendous value in the video, and then it also goes along with, the analytics piece of it, and just, you start putting all that together as a coach, and that picture of what you want your program to be becomes a little bit clearer as you put all those pieces together, and then hopefully that translates into what you do for your players as individuals, and then what you do for your team as a whole, which is going to help you be as successful as you possibly can. Let's jump from your high school coaching. Let's jump into what you're doing with your video series and some of the things that you have going outside of your high school coaching, which I know is obviously related to it, but just talk a little bit about what you're doing with all your video stuff and your online presence.
Sure. So last year, again, going back to the analytics, is we had one set, and it's, I don't know, almost calling it America's Play now, but it's, where you dribble to a guy through an elevator and, you're looking for a shot. And again, we're keeping track of points per possession on sets. And what happened is we were realizing that simple set of running a guy through an elevator screen, we were scoring at like a 1.47 points per possession. It's like, well, why don't we do this more often?
You might want to run that the whole game.
Right. So, and then we're breaking it down. We're like, why does that work so much? Because, guarding an elevator screen, okay, and you might get one off, or if a team scouts you, it's hard to get another shot off. So then we started realizing that basically when you run a guy through an elevator screen, you're just taking away all the help side D. So if you have a guy that can penetrate, is the help side's coming from such a long ways is on the dribble kick out. It's a wide open three. And then we're also seeing like teams defend it differently, defend your post players differently. So we're learning diagonal slip and cross screen for each other, and we're able to get some baskets, and we're getting more and more creative out of this set. And then basically one day I was sitting and I was like, I think I can create an offense out of this, and basically running them through a continuity of an elevator screen. So basically if you pass it, you fill opposite, and the other guy runs through an elevator screen. You can keep going side to side and running guys. You just clear a side and run the other guy through an elevator screen. And then meanwhile, if the defense cheats it, we have calls, and the post player can either dive it or diagonal cut it. And we started having different actions. So then we even dove in even farther, and we were saying if we called one, the one would isolate and penetrate going one-on-one. Two, we would, if they're cheating that elevator screen, we would post one of the wings, either the 2 or the 3. So we had our actions. 4 and 5, then we had an automatic clear out for a pick and roll. And then Spain pick and roll out of it, where they're coming off the ball screen and then they're setting a back screen. So we were able to create an offense out of it. And at first I thought it was kind of funny. We called it the elevation offense, and we just kept getting better and better at it. And I diagrammed it up. I sent it to Championship Productions, and they ended up coming to the school and shooting a video. And right now it's on Championship Productions. I think it was one of the higher sales in the spring. And so we were able to end up pushing out this elevation offense, and I started getting coaches emailing me and asking me more how to run it. And then I had a guy named Layson Perkins. He's kind of well known for the Horns offense, and Wade Floyd that owns Coach Tube. And Wade calls me up and he's like, I like what you're doing. Call me when you get a chance. I called him and he just said, it's tough to make money when you're a third party and you're getting royalty on your videos. So why don't you come create videos and put stuff that you had, in the past that you've diagrammed, you've been coaching a while, and see if you can sell it. And at first I was like, all right, I'll try it. Why not? And so at first, I just sent all my old stuff, like my four out one in motion stuff, and it was a big packet, and all the stuff that I've done, like the 2-2-1, 1-2, the basic stuff.
Right.
And I put on Coach Tube, and I got some sales, but not a lot. And then I was sitting there thinking one day, I'm like, what are all the things that I always try to think out of the box and I can kind of create? And can I create my own video, bringing in 5 players and just running it and diagramming it and talking about it? And so the next thing I wanted to do was my 4-1 zone defense, because it's just a different, unique defense. A lot of teams aren't used to seeing it, and you can kind of camouflage what you're running. You can start in a 4-1 and get into a 2-2-1 or a 2-1-2, or on a pass you can go to 1-2-2, and it was a different, unique defense. So I put that on there, and I got some sales. And then I started thinking more and more, I can make this a product. I got a logo made, and I started really picking the minds of guys that are really successful at selling stuff, basketball stuff online. Like Scott Peterman's been a big help from Hoop Scoop, and just kind of seeing what other coaches do. And I ended up saying, what, I want to be innovative with the things I think about. Right now there's a lot of stuff, everyone's seen kind of the same stuff. I want to start thinking out of the box and just coming up with just unique ideas of the game of basketball and seeing if I can get it on there and start really marketing my product. And over the last month, I've really dialed in, or 2 months of really putting stuff out there and networking. And now I'm up to 40. I have 41 lessons on there, and I have a lot of different, a cherry picking system. My system when I was at Tri-Unity, how to create 32 turnovers per game. And I had something that came out on innovative basketball concepts, and it's free stuff that I give out, or analytics, how to scout a game. And I throw out a lot of free stuff, and then I also sell a lot of inexpensive. I don't want to be known as cheap, like a cheap product, but over the years I've bought a lot of videos, and I've gone to a lot of clinics. I've spent a lot of money, and I want it to be inexpensive for coaches. And I want to be that guy that's leading the market of inexpensive way to learn the game, to where I have every offense and defense to learn it. Our lessons not only have videos, but they have diagrams, and they have different people's perspectives on it. And then I also wanted to kind of be that guy that has innovative new ways of thinking of the game and kind of be known for that. And then recently what I've learned to do is just by going to these coaching clinics, is being the all access guy, to where now I'm contacting big name coaches, either college or high school, and going and videotaping a couple of their practice, like Championship Productions does with the all access. Except for I go to their practices, I put their bio up, and then I put their practice plan as well, so coaches can see their practice plan, and then they can watch their full practice. And I'm going to start selling these for only $10. So it's like a no-brainer for coaches to get on there and watch a successful coach's practice and see their practice plan. And right now I'm contacting a lot of coaches, and I'm trying to get out there and get to practices now before my season starts. And then since I go late, I go to 7 to 9. There's a lot of coaches that practice right after school, so I'll be able to get over to them and get their practices videotaped and get them. And then I'll be able to network and market the product and and hopefully it's an inexpensive way for coaches to learn. And anytime someone comes with an innovative way, send it my way. I'll try to do something to really push that out.
All right, so what's the video process like for you? How do you go about putting together the videos? How do you go about editing them? Who helps you? What's the process there?
So I'm not a big time. I don't have a big time production studio, so I don't hire like the championship. And I'm not throwing that. I mean, they do a great job. They're phenomenal. But they have a third party. They'll usually hire someone that's pretty expensive, and they'll come in and they'll video it, and it looks great. I'm trying to keep the price down, so it's basically, I got me in a tripod, and I'm videotaping it, and I bring it home, and my girlfriend's pretty creative, and she's pretty good on, she's tech savvy, so she'll help me clip it up and get it prepared the right way, and that's all I do.
So what was
and
the
then
learning?
Diagramming.
What was the learning?
Diagramming, I just use Fast Model.
Yeah. What was the learning curve like in terms of trying to get that all together? Because I'm just thinking about our perspective from just the podcast as an example here. That we first started to edit an episode and try to get it sounding relatively functional and have all the little intro, outro, and if we had an ad or whatever to throw all that stuff together. It took a long time. And as we've gotten better and we're up to 200 and some episodes now, as long as the audio quality of our recording is good, editing it doesn't take very much time at all, because we just have gotten better at it and gone through and done it enough that now we know what we're doing. So are you experiencing that same thing where maybe
I'm experiencing the same thing? Oh, for sure. I mean, I had a bad camera at first, and I remember just getting home and going, dang, that's some terrible quality. And then you just learn little different things, the different angles, and a good angle that you need. And it's just, again, like you said, it's just learning through the experience and just getting better each time. I'll be at home and I'll just like, man, that's terrible. I don't know why I did that. And the next time you make the correction. Yeah,
for sure. All right, so I want you to be able to share how people can find your stuff so that coaches who have been listening tonight, if they're intrigued, if they're interested by what you're talking about, where can they go to find, first of all your free content, and then where can they go to make the buy on some of the great stuff that you have out there right now?
Right now, for all of it, so free stuff, I have bundles. I have a bundle right now for all the lessons that I have, which I want to say it's 40 something now. I mean, I give or take a couple, but for $97 where you get everything. I mean, you'll have a basketball
a big library.
Yeah.
A big library.
A big library. Yep, that's the word. Yeah. So basically, all you do is you go to CoachTube.com. They have other coaches on there that are doing good things too. But you go to CoachTube.com and you type in Tyler Whitcomb. It's TYLERWHITCOMB, and then you go right on to my page. It shows my advertisement, my logo. You scroll down. It's got all my free stuff, and it's got all my stuff that's for sale. And it's even got a preview and a description of what you'll be buying. Okay, it's a great logo, by the way. Thank you. I like that. What service did you use? I'm just curious. You know what? I had my girls basketball coach at West Michigan Aviation Academy. He has a side business called Prep SID. Okay. Where he's like a student information director for high schools. So it's like a cheap, and basically he's a graphic guy. So Gotcha. He came up with it for me. It's cool. Yeah, it's really good, man. I like it. I'm a logo guy. So I like looking at what people come up with, and that was probably one of the most fun processes that I've been through. And I used like one of those online design services when we did that for my Head Start basketball company, I don't know, a number of years ago, probably 7 or 8 years ago now. And then we used it again for the podcast, and we'd send the design out, and then people would send the designs back to you, and I'd be there like every minute, like looking, did I get another new design, and checking them out and trying to see and come up with them. So I always like seeing what people come up with for logos. So yours is very good. I really like it. Oh, thank you. I like yours too. I like the hoops heads. Yeah, it turned out pretty good. We were really happy with it. So you just you get enough people working on it, and we kind of crowdsourced it, and you get enough people working on it. And we had the one we picked we really liked, but we had a couple more that we really liked that we thought were good. That so we had a couple good things to choose from, and we'll have to go like an alternate
alternate logo, like the alternate jerseys.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. The city jerseys or something. I don't know. Who knows? But
throw it out every third episode.
That's right.
Throw out your alternative.
That's it. Exactly. All right, Tyler, we're coming up on an hour and a half. I want to give you a chance again. Just share how people can reach out to you directly, whether through email or Twitter, just so people can know where they can find you if they have questions. And then obviously you already shared where they can get the videos. And then after you do that, if you have anything that we didn't hit on tonight that you want to touch on as kind of your parting shot, you can go ahead and do that. And then we'll jump back in and wrap up the episode.
Perfect. So if anyone wants to reach out to me through email, I'll give you, instead of my school email, I'll give you my personal email. It's Tyler Whitcomb. So again, TYLERWHITCOMB@comcast.net. I'm on Twitter. You can look up my name. It'll pop up, or it's under Michigan Men /Men, and it's just due to my high school team, aviation. It just popped up men's basketball, so that's why it's Michigan Men. And then on Facebook, it's you can look up Tyler Whitcomb basketball coaching courses, and I have a page on that as well. And again, you can always go to coachtube.com and type in Tyler Whitcomb. And also you can Google search me, Tyler Whitcomb basketball coaching concepts or coaching courses, and you'll be able to find my information. And I love to talk basketball. I'm a basketball junkie, so if it's anything that you can think of or any question you have, I love to respond to basketball questions or even love to get input. Again, my biggest thing right now is being innovative. Some of my concepts that I came up with and ideas, you can go to my page and you can print up the sheet that I printed. It's one of the free things that I'm giving away, but I was just kind of thinking of different ways to look at the game, and I'll go through a couple of them just to kind of plug what I do. But I thought of a warm-up shooters concept where in baseball we have a pitcher's mound where we send a pitcher to warm up. Well, most schools now have a second gym, they have a shooting gun. Could we send our shooters before they come in to go get warmed up? Especially if you have a substitution plan. Some coaches do, they don't, but it's just a weird idea. Having two separate teams in one. What I mean by that is, a lot of times you have 12 players. If you have a freshman and JV, have freshmen run a whole different program than your JV, and then by the time you get them on varsity, kind of have two different teams and teach them two different styles. So you can kind of sub in. Using like the football approach to where you have a staff, you have a special teams coach, a blobs coach, you're getting the guy that's just studying one aspect of it, and you have like 12 coaches, a ball handling coach, a shooting coach, defensive coach, offensive coach, and you kind of run your system through that. Everyone kind of has a defensive approach to helping, whether you switch all screens. Something that was kind of cool that Michigan did is they didn't help on anything. They just taught everything to be one-on-one. And it was because, the game of basketball is turning into driving and kicking. The other thing is the lock left defense. Study it. Dave Smart has it out, but it's a cool concept. Different ways to get into different things, like on made twos, get into 1-2-2, made free throws, get into 1-2-1-1, made threes, get into 2-2-1. Just kind of mix it up. If you're a trapping team, play 3-on-4 and 4-on-5 every day. I promise you'll love the results. If you get a chance, check out my 4-1 aggressive zone defense, my cherry picking system. You'll see just a different way you can play the game of basketball. And a couple things too that I've learned is have your players lead the film sessions, and you'll see that they're more engaged in the scouting reports. And then also every day, if you have a team that's just not coming out ready to go in the games, start simulating a quarter every practice, so where you come in and you're in that mindset of we're going to go through a regular warm-up and we're playing a whole first quarter. And I think those things will help you, and those are some of the things that I put out for free on my page. And I'm always looking to add new things to my page and have nice bundles and have products that are only $10, and look forward to all the new coaches that I'll be having on there for like an all access. And again, I'm always willing to learn, and I'm always willing to help out any coach. I love the game of basketball, and I love being a basketball junkie, and I love just being involved and kind of learning the new concepts and what's taking place in the game of basketball.
Tyler, that's all great stuff. Well, your passion and love for the game of basketball certainly comes through loud and clear. We can't thank you enough for spending an hour and a half with us tonight and going through and talking about your basketball journey and then sharing all the great resources that you have for coaches who are out there as part of our audience. So thanks again to you and to everyone out there. We will catch you on our next episode. Thanks. Head Start Basketball's Player Development Academy offers Cleveland area players a unique opportunity to improve their basketball skills. Regardless of a player's age, skill level, or position, training with Head Start Basketball will elevate your game to the next level. Do you want to improve your ball handling, become a better shooter, or develop into a more skilled, confident player? Our Academy classes offer training that's designed to do just that. Our training sessions are innovative and will have you learning skills that are transferable to actual games. We have 4 different class skill levels for boys and girls, ages 4 and up. All Player Development Academy classes will be held at the Strongsville Recreation Center. For more information or to get registered, please visit www.headstartbasketball.com.
Thanks for listening to the Hoop Heads podcast, presented by Head Start Basketball.